Welcome, everyone. This is Rashad back with the T.R.O.N podcast. The guest we have today is a very accomplished doctoral candidate and health and wellness advocate, as well as establishing his own practice for people to assist them in mental health, reaching their better selves. I have Mr. Ryan Allen Jones with me. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Hello, sir. Rashad, thank you for having me on.
That's awesome. So you have such a fascinating background. First of all, you're polymath, which I wasn't sure was ever a term, I'll be totally honest with you. I had to research it before I got on here, and you're a doctoral candidate. So can you just explain a little bit of your background, what polymath is, and kind of how you got into your field?
Yeah, so I've always had a really diverse set of interests. I'm not someone who found one thing and was like, oh, it's going to be my thing forever. I've always been, whether it's the little bit of ADHD or what have you, I've always been really fascinated by many things. And so I find myself in the position of kind of an integrative thinker, where I see connections between fields. And so I studied yoga for a long time. I went to acting school. And so I've kind of been enmeshed in there's this idea in emergence coaching that you are a biopsychosocial being. So you're a body, mind, and the set of relationships, between the mind and the body, but you're also a set of human social relationships.
Yeah.
So I've just been fascinated forever with all the different pieces that we're composed of and how they interrelate with one another, and the practices that help us develop kind of a comprehensive sense of satisfaction in our life and health and well-being and that sort of thing.
So when you got into that field, and I don't mean to get too personal, a lot of people had to go through certain stages to get to that point in life where they said, I can help because either A, I went through this, B, somebody was close to me who went through something, or I saw enough of it up close that I decided this was my best field of interest because I became a subject matter expert because of that field. Was there anything that kind of molded you to go in that direction of how you developed these skills?
There's certainly... I've been really privileged in this life. I've not had anything really traumatic happen to me. I have not struggled with addiction. I've always been very sensitive to what I was feeling. And I think for better or for worse, I think especially in masculine spaces, especially as a child, that's kind of
very
that's
hard.
Not something, it's kind of hard to be a sensitive young man.
I don't mean to interrupt, but it seems like it's gotten better now.
I would agree. I think the kind of the masculine crisis that we're in right now is resolving in the direction of men embracing a little more femininity, a little more of the feeling and the receiving kind of aspect of what it is to be human. And so I think that that I was gifted with that was something that led me to how do I make my body feel beautiful? How do I make my relationships feel beautiful? How do I engage my mind in a beautiful way? How do I love myself and other people? And so it's it started off, I was really interested in Eastern spirituality and peace and meditation and love and then as an actor, studying people and just getting really value neutral about people, judgment neutral, this is what you want. This is what's in the way. This is what you're choosing in order to get what you want. It just kind of removing the kind of morality from humans and human behavior. Has really helped me see myself and other people, I don't know, a little more with more compassion.
So you saw you studied various methods, Eastern methods and yoga. Did you find any different stress factors that are Americans, they've always said are the most stressed people in the world, right? Did you find that when you were researching that people live longer with certain lifestyles in certain other territories, countries, lifestyles, and how did you kind of make sure that you were gearing yourself towards a betterment of self?
So I know in my practice right now, there are kind of there are a handful of factors, again, that kind of interrelate with one another.
Right.
So we each have a belief system, this matrix of beliefs that we form in early childhood based on our kind of relationship with our caregivers. And in those relationships, we learn about what we can expect from other people and what other people can expect from us. And And so that has to do with self-worth and what we believe is possible.
Right.
And so then as we go out into the world, we are seeing everything that happens through that framework of beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's kind of like morality neutral. Beliefs aren't good or bad or true or false. They're more or less useful depending on our situation. And to the extent that our matrix limits what's possible for us, limits who we're allowing ourselves to be or what we allow ourselves to experience, that's the degree to which we experience this kind of like existential frustration of like, I'm not good enough. I don't have enough. There's something wrong with me.
Right.
Like to the extent that we experience that emotionally is the extent to which we are stressed out because something's wrong, you know? So a lot of my practice right now has to do with catching the limiting belief structures, catching the feelings that are coming up that are kind of the feelings are like friction. They're like a friction between our desires that drive us, the kind of like our divinity, what's aching to come out of us, and the kind of boxes that we've created for ourselves.
Well, I think too, to kind of piggyback off of that, is that people oftentimes relieve stress in the incorrect manners, right? So they end up drinking or eating more, right? They end up doing things that they think are it's a temporary relief kind of a situation, as opposed to your method where you're like, no, you need to get to the root cause of self to actually get that out of your body as a whole. And I only say that because, I do martial arts, right? And so a lot of times you'll have either like a quick meditation period, or they'll tell you, quote unquote, don't fight angry, right? Spar angry. So, but it's always but I think your method is less, make sure that you don't self-destruct and do something to the point of self-harm, meaning indulgence. I'm not talking, obviously people can do other things, but I think you hit some very important points on that.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're nailing something right there, which is like part of how stress becomes dysfunctional, because we're designed to be stressed out. Like stress is actually really good for us. It helps us grow. It lets us know that we're being challenged by something. But to the extent that we're coping with stress with patterns that actually take us away from what we're feeling, as opposed to into what we're feeling, to the extent that we use video games, absolutely. Numbing out with video games is my bread and butter. Like, absolutely. Let me disassociate from what's going on.
Absolutely.
But to the extent that we're engaged with those patterns, we're limiting ourselves. We're hurting ourselves.
Well, the other thing you mentioned earlier too, which I thought was very powerful, because it started getting brought up. I saw it in numerous articles. It said that especially when it comes to men, when you talked about the masculinity or being more emotions and things like that, they said that there's a large pattern of male loneliness that happens in people, right? And if you actually think about it, and that, there's a difference between alone and lonely, and I understand there's differences in it, but there is actually there was a gentleman they talked about that was formerly in the military, got separated, from friends from college and in the military, started his life, etc. And then he moved with his wife and children, and then he found out he had no male friends, right? He had actually, and you actually started thinking about that, and you realize that he started doing meeting groups with other grown men, just talking, and the group got larger and larger and larger, and you're like, holy smokes, So to your point, it's become more acceptable, and that has to be helpful.
Yeah. I think that we have a historical pattern again in like the system of our society where men are discouraged from being intimate with one another, with anyone other than a female like partner.
Right.
And there are various kind of like behavioral patterns that reinforce that loneliness.
Right.
And then we're encouraged to disengage from our feelings. We're encouraged toward like achievement and aggressive pursuit of external reward. And there are very good reasons for that. It's like for how many thousands of years did we need men? Men needed to be disconnected from what they felt so that they could do really, really difficult, dangerous, potentially lethal things so that they could protect the people around them and serve the people around them. So we have to be super grateful for these patterns too, because they're what got us here.
That's ultimately how the world was built, right?
Yep.
That's ultimately right. Through very various acts, that's how society evolved, right? the good, the
Yeah.
bad, and the ugly, right? So that's how ultimately you have buildings and spaceships and all the fancy technologies behind it that are associated with that.
Yeah.
So
But that's this kind of 20th century pushback against the patriarchy, is this
right,
kind of like this way we have of being men is increasingly dysfunctional. And so we need to find ways to be in touch with ourselves and with one another. And just what you're pointing out, those men's groups where people get to sit and talk, and like men to just get to talk and be with one another.
right,
Those are so, like, I've never been at an event like that that didn't feel totally nourishing. Just like
right,
where everybody was
yeah,
just like, I'm just so
right,
glad to be here. I'm so like
right,
grounded being here with you.
absolutely.
Like,
Right, and they showed guys, and and I'm sure you can speak better on this. Guys who were divorced, guys who were widowed, and things like that, where you realize that they actually needed somebody to talk to, not even in just to be able to have something to relate to, right? Just to be able
yeah,
to sit back. These are the challenges of my everyday life, and you find commonality with that, and then you'll find out that there's data to prove that people who do that live longer.
yeah, yeah. Well, and like, it's just that it's like, if I'm lonely, I believe I'm alone. And I believe that I can't relate to anyone. No one can relate to me. And
Right,
so just the evidence of like, oh, you go through that too?
right,
Like, that's huge. That's a
for sure.
big deal.
For sure. So your services that you offer,
Yeah,
excuse me.
and the website is www.raj.coach.
Okay, got it. So I
Yeah.
got a chance to look at your services, and it seems like you're the type of person that really like found themselves, whether it's dealing with nature or being outdoors, and really being able to connect with your spirituality. And you have clients. Can you describe like a typical client and the coaching session and kind of the breaking of the ice they would do when they call you for
Yeah.
services?
So first, I wouldn't say I have a typical client.
Mm-hmm.
One of my challenges as a coach actually has been just this messaging about niche, like find your niche, find your who's your ideal client.
Right.
I don't really believe in that.
Okay.
Um, my my clients are hungry. They want something to change. They want something for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and that can manifest in a myriad of different ways. But as far as a coaching session is concerned, it's kind of like this actually,
Okay.
where there's a role distinction that's very important that we
Right.
don't have in this conversation, but it's just a conversation,
Okay.
and it's the you and I sit down and you share with me where you're headed today, what you want to get out of our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And then I listen to you and I
Mm-hmm.
reflect you to yourself.
Yeah.
And there's a humanistic psychologist named Carl Rogers who
Mm-hmm.
had this idea of unconditional positive regard, where if you sit with someone and you're being with them and you treat them like they're okay and they don't need to be fixed, there's nothing wrong with them, that people as a process, they will self-organize into the version of themselves that feels better.
As
And
opposed to going down point A, B, C, yo,
we need to fix
kids don't
this, we
talk
need to
to
fix
me.
that. Yeah,
Right, right,
yeah.
right. Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
it's really about love. It's about love and compassion, and like, and we'll get to the mistaken beliefs. We'll create strategies. You'll have assignments. We'll make changes in your life, but it'll be about you becoming more yourself,
Yeah,
you acknowledging and being with what you're feeling,
right.
and accepting who you are, and that's how you
Do you have
change.
any? Have you ever had any companies that reach out to you, like like, hey, I think this would be beneficial to my staff, as from an organizational HR standpoint, and that there's an avenue that they can, because I think that would be helpful to companies, right? To have
Yeah.
like is that something that you think you would grow, it would morph into eventually, kind of organically?
Yeah, I think I'd be delighted to work with an organization. I think that'd be a lot of fun. It's
Yeah,
not such an opportunity has not presented itself yet, but I'm definitely
right.
open to that.
Job
And
function.
even you've the people in the organization, and then the organization itself is a being, is a system,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so you can coach the organization like
Right.
via the individuals and their relationships and the
Absolutely.
systemic, the operations. Like you can
Mhm.
help an organization become what it could be.
Correct. And maybe it's because they just missed that one potential avenue with their employees, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I had to ask you because I had never heard of this. What's the Wim Hof technique? I looked
Oh,
up some. Yeah.
Wim Hof is a wild man. So he's this like Norse like dude. He's probably a little on the spectrum, but he just decided one day when he was a like a 20-year-old that like I need to be in cold water. I just like have to be in cold water. I need it. It's like
So yeah.
medicine. He's like a shaman. He set a bunch of world records around cold exposure, just like holding his breath under cold water, doing a marathon barefoot in like Siberia, like climbing mountains barefoot, bare chested. And he developed this method of cold exposure and breath work that is kind of the reason we're thinking that's in the zeitgeist right now. There's this like cold plunge thing happening.
Yeah.
That's all because of Wim Hof.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was crazy because and then it looks like there's forced hyperventilation, and then it's been proven a technique to actually reduce stress and everything like that too.
Yeah. You get a multi-hour boost of happy chemicals like dopamine and serotonin. So it's great for depression. It's like really, really fantastic for like just kind of balancing your emotional state. And then for me, there's a strong spiritual component. I've done a lot of work with psychedelics, not so much anymore, but like earlier kind of in my journey, I did a lot of work with that. And just the like, especially going from hot to cold and doing the breath work, I get really high. I get really like spiritually like connected to something. I get like messages.
So how do you adapt to going from normal body temperature? The human body is 98.6 degrees, 99 roughly, between 97.9 and 99 degrees, I believe. How do you actually safely drop your body temperature from the normal extreme to that? Like, is there stages involved in something like that? Because a lot of people could pass out, I'm guessing. I would.
So as far as the like developing a practice of it is concerned, a nice starting point is like just dial into the cold at the end of the shower. Just like turn it down as cold as you can and be in there for a minute and then turn it off and get out and towel off. That's a nice place to start. The body has a really strong survival response to being exposed to cold like that. And the reality is that it's actually not very dangerous in the immediate term, in the short term. But if you think like 10,000 years ago, if you got dunked in cold water and your clothes were soaked, you'd be screwed.
100%.
Right?
100%.
So with modern conveniences and towels and preparation, it's actually very safe to do, but the body still experiences this spike of like, oh God, this is really scary. So once you pass through that, it's like, I mean, like, you mentioned martial arts like jujitsu. It's like when you're getting choked out, that's the scary, the body's freaking out about
150%.
it. You're very safe. You're with a partner. You love this guy probably, and
you get along.
Yeah, but it's the scariest thing you'll do all week. So everything else is pretty chill. Everything else that happens to you, it really puts things into perspective.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, right? Because I do martial arts, right? So I have a black belt in Tong Sudo.
Oh, cool.
I have a brown belt in Taekwondo, and I take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. So, as far as standing up, it's all, obviously all of them have their specific techniques, but there's variances in each. With a kick, you can throw a kick and you can change it up for that style. There's nothing quite like you said when you're about to pass out and you're getting choked out. And anybody who's done jiu-jitsu and said they've never been choked out is lying to you. They're lying to you. Because to your point, your body goes in that middle freak out mode where you're like, it's really happening to me. And then you're out. You're just out. So that's kind of a cool correlation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's that funny, like, I don't know, when I was a white belt, I got a really great piece of advice that was just like, chill out and watch the person dismantle you. Like, Like, don't fight so hard. It's like,
Right.
chill. They're going to dismantle you, whether you like it or not. So just
100%.
like relax a little bit, watch it happening so that
Yeah.
you can learn. And
Right.
like,
Yeah.
it's that sort of thing in the cold too. It's like, okay, body, you're safe. Nothing bad is going to happen. You can be with
Right.
this intense feeling, this intense
Right.
sensation. You can be with that. And
Right.
then eventually you kind of pass through the panic
Yeah.
and you get to this really like super high, blissful, like relaxed kind of state
Right.
of being where you're like, your body's accepted this experience.
Yeah.
And then you get all the happy chemicals and then you get
Oh,
out
man.
because it's freaking cold.
So how does a person who realizes, how do they reach out to you, and what stage in life are they kind of at? Do they sit back and say, I'm here and I realize I can't kind of compartmentalize this on my own, so to speak?
Yeah, I think a lot of people come to me at a time when they need to transition. They're either a transition's forced, where they lose a job, they lose a relationship, something happens that causes them to be in kind of an existential crisis. Like, what do I do? Who am I?
Right.
Or there's kind of this longer burn of like, man, I am in a rut and I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I don't know, who am I becoming? Like,
Mhm.
like what is this all that life is? Is this life I've created, or is there
Right.
something more? I think those are
Right.
kind of the two circumstances people tend to fall into.
Right. Yeah, because it seems like there would be, there's that euphoric 18 to 25 year period for most. First of all, are most of your clients men?
I'd say it's about 50-50 actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So as far as men are concerned, it seems like they're what we described earlier. And I know you don't have any particular female client. What do they usually come with you at when it comes to women?
Oh, do you mean like age range?
Like questions, like, I have this going on. Is it kind of similar in both avenues when it comes to men and women?
Yeah, I mean, everyone comes with a little something different. So I'll use two case studies. So
Yeah.
I have one young man I was working with, and he's a comedian. He's an improviser living in Chicago. And when he came to me, this was early in the pandemic. He was having trouble keeping down a job. He had a bunch of really kind of like abusive work relationships that weren't working for him. He wasn't
Mm-hmm.
making it the way he wanted to, and he was just like, this isn't working. And through our work together, he moved home. He found a job in the service industry that he was like, I can sink my teeth into this,
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of a couple years, he's lost like 50 pounds.
That's awesome.
He's dating in a way that he never kind of like could before, like,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got a job he loves. He's been promoted a couple times, and
Nice.
he's now like, okay, I've done this a couple years, and now, but there's got to be more. So I'm looking for a new job. I'm looking for something, but he's coming from this place where he's got this strong sense of ethic and his own value, and he's getting back into comedy again.
Yeah,
And
he found
so,
his foundation to where he can build himself kind of back up.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's one person, and then another person, female, just getting into jujitsu, loves the competition, perfectionist, and in a series of I guess abusive relationships is sort of a theme here, but like in a series of abusive romantic relationships. Over the
Terrible.
course of our working together, she's gone from white belt to purple belt. She just won a big tournament, which was a big deal for her.
Fantastic. That's
She's
fantastic.
been navigating the kind of the self-flagellation of losing and failing, and just learning how to accept failure and grow from it, and
Right.
the consequences. She's performing a lot better. She's way less anxious. She
Right.
found a full-time job doing what she loves in the world of jiu-jitsu, which is just like wild.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it's the sort of thing where people come and they have this kind of like longing, and then through kind of working on themselves and their relationship to themselves and what they feel, and how they cope with what they feel, that they're able to move into the direction they want to be going in.
Got it.
Yeah.
Where did you get your undergraduate degree? I know you're a doctorate candidate, obviously, right now, but where did you get your undergraduate degree?
So the first time around, I was at Cal State University Fullerton in the acting BFA. I didn't finish my coursework there. I finished the acting program, but I didn't do the rest of my credits because I was a wild man. I just wanted to go out in the world. So went out, and then I, when I kind of came into this kind of like particular field of social emotional intelligence and personal development, I did a year-long course, and at the end of that course, I was like, I want to be a doctor. I want to go back. I want to finish my bachelor's. So I got my undergrad at Union University, which is an online university in organizational leadership, and then I did this master's program in transformational leadership and coaching, and then now I'm in the doctorate.
Got it.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. That's fantastic. Do you work with do you work with kids, or is it just a certain? Is that something you don't do?
I haven't worked with kids. I mean, I've taught kids classes in my past. So but I've not done any of this work with kids. We've been, for the purposes of the dissertation, we've been discouraged from working with anyone underage. Really, the program is focused on adult development, but I've studied plenty of kind of childhood development and educational kind of models. So
I always ask people two questions, and this is because one thing is about AI. Has AI helped or hurt your business when it comes to helping people, or is there a methodology that involves artificial intelligence?
I think that AI is a really cool tool for small business people, because it just allows you to do things that you couldn't do alone. And it's ChatGPT is very accessible. So I think that there are ways to use the tool that I can leverage as a coach to help me grow my business. And
absolutely.
One of the benefits, I think my field is a little AI proof, because although you can develop a program that will kind of help people, that can reflect people to themselves, right? You can build a program that can interpret language through text and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's something really special about
talking to someone.
Well, and even someone else's brain is over there. And something that happens in the coaching conversation is that there's actual research that's shown that our brain patterns begin to kind of like resonate with one another, and that so Ed Tronick wrote a paper called Dyadically Expanded States of Consciousness.
Okay.
Where he studied mothers and their children, and he studied their brain patterns. Yeah. And he showed that the brain of the developing child borrows the frontal lobe activity of the mother.
Oh, wow.
So the child is writing their code off of mom. Due to the proximity. And there's further research has shown that a similar sort of thing happens in the therapeutic relationship, where the client will borrow the kind of like the integrated mental like brain activity of the therapist in a relationship where there's mutuality and compassion and that sort of thing.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And then my second thing is that it's kind of a two-pronged question, the same question. Has the internet, as far as your field, helped? Because now people have been more able to share stories and backgrounds. But the second leg to that is, has it hurt as well, too, being that now maybe the internet isn't the answer to your questions and you need to reach out to people, and or everybody's suddenly a subject matter expert because, they have a Twitter or a TikTok following.
Yeah, I would say on one hand, obviously, I mean, Zoom makes my business possible. Like, I have clients in California, I have clients in DC. I've
beautiful.
It's made it possible for me to like work with people all over the place, which is super
cool. Absolutely.
I think it's difficult to establish oneself as a subject matter expert, because of the noise online.
Right.
And so you sort of have to, something I'm practicing is just like trusting that my voice, that people will hear me and recognize the value in what I have to say, and that'll be enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing is too, is that kind of you had, as a person and as a, not, I don't utilize those services, but the one thing I did when I researched you was I did my homework, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does the person have clients? Do they have a page? Do they have testimonials? Are there people, do they have YouTube and interviews with other people? So just in my brief, foray into this, because, there's a lot more. Insurance didn't used to cover mental health, right? Now it does, right? So there's avenues that have allowed people, but people looking for people who are credible can certainly be steered in the wrong direction if they don't do their homework, right? So, your services are awesome, and it just was like, when you talk about psychedelics and you're talking about martial arts, and it's like, I'm kind of picturing this guy like outside, just kind of one with the universe, and it just seemed really fascinating to me when you messaged me.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that's in my ideal version of myself. I'm really tuned in with what's actually happening, and
Right.
and I can help other people tune into what's going on, and like
Right.
that's all I'm hoping to do.
That's awesome. Well, and I appreciate, so much of your time and the services you offer. It's obviously such a great cause. And it seems like, more importantly, your reach is going beyond your geographical area, because you have a website, you got customers that are, clients, that are reaching, around the country for you. So I thank you for that. Is there any question that you have for me in particular before we, wrap this up?
What? I mean, obviously this conversation I really enjoyed this conversation with you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for contacting me. I'm not interesting enough to a lot of people, but you decided I was, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I wonder, like, what is this podcast becoming for you? Where are you headed with this?
So it's so funny because I get asked that question a lot. So I was like, when I was thinking in my head, I was like, okay, I'll call it the T.R.O.N podcast, the randomness of nothing, right? Because I thought, and I've said this to other people who I've interviewed, I'm not smart enough to do what you do. I'm not smart enough to be a mechanic. I'm not smart enough to be a chef. I don't have those intimate skills. But the one thing that always fascinated me was I always like to learn things. I'll watch documentaries. I get on the YouTube wormhole. I like random facts and information. I can get, I'll watch a documentary on the building of the Eiffel Tower, right? Or, or I'll learn about the Colossus of Rhodes or something like that, right? Yeah. And I'll just be like, and I just know stupid stuff like that may not be interesting to the average person but then when you talk to somebody like you're like, dude, keep going. And then I found out, well, if I'm not smart enough to do those other things, I can talk to much smarter people than me who are subject matter experts, and I can pick their brain, and maybe they'll share their brain and their time with me. It's been pretty good so far, because it's been a wonderful journey. So I just said, you know what? For lack of a better term, I'm a curious guy whose head just wants to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and like him or hate him, that's Joe Rogan's magic, is that
exactly.
He's really willing to listen and learn. And so I think you got a winning formula there.
And, and the biggest thing about it is that you always come in with the idea. If you don't explore anything more than what's 10 feet in front of you, it becomes a very small place where you live. A very small place where you live, right? You have to look past the grocery store on the corner. You have to look past the car that's driving in front of you, right? And, before, and I don't know how old you are, you could only open up an encyclopedia. There was no internet at certain ages in life. Now you're like, that's fascinating. I can get that information right now. When I had an encyclopedia, my parents used to buy it, but, you could have a 10-year-old version of an encyclopedia. It could be 10 years old, right? It didn't have the most current information. It was cool you had one, but, it could have been, the 1992 version and you're in 1996.
Yeah.
Now there's no excuse not to know stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that you have a commitment to lifelong learning, I think it's one of the most important things that an adult can possess, is a desire to continue to learn and grow. So
yeah, it's been proven people live longer when they think about stuff and they read about stuff. It's a fact. It's a pure 100% fact.
Yeah.
So, and you certainly made me think, because, I might need to jump and take a cold shower, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
That'll be a leap of faith, man. I'll tell you that. Oof. I'm conditioned to a warm shower, man.
Try to stay in for 1 minute.
That's a long time, man.
1 minute. Once you get through that first minute, it's all easy after that.
Well, it's so funny, right? Like just briefly, like you do jujitsu, right? And I do jujitsu. I do Muay Thai. When people say, spar somebody for 3 minutes, I don't think the average person realizes how long 3 minutes
Yeah.
truly. I mean, it is a lifetime
Yeah.
fighting somebody. It is a lifetime fighting somebody. It really, truly is. It's crazy. So, no, man, I can't thank you enough for your time.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Rashad. This is a pleasure. Thank you.